Hello and welcome to Daily Dose Radio, a 5-minute-a-day podcast studying the Psalms verse by verse, recorded here in the dining room of the Bible Bistro, located in Sharonville, Ohio. Hey friends, welcome back to Daily Dose Radio, here in the Bible Bistro, where we have it 5 minutes a day, 5 days a week, studying the Psalms verse by verse. Although yesterday didn't quite make 5 minutes. We went way over our 5-minute time period. But it was important because we had those 7 elements basic to prayer. When you just talk about prayer, those 7 elements are important. But now let's talk about the person praying. The my speech, the guy behind what's happening. We're going to see that today in verses 4 and 5. So let me read those for you. For you do not take pleasure in wickedness. Evil does not abide with you. The foolish will not stand before your eyes. You hate all the workers of iniquity. So we have in verses 4 and 5 something about the condition of the man praying. We know that God does not take pleasure in wickedness. That's true. Evil does not abide with him. That is also true. The foolish will not stand. We know that is true. Verse 5 in Psalm 1 tells us that the foolish are not going to stand in the congregation of the upright, that the wicked man's not going to stand there. So we get all that, and we say, oh, those poor people, because he says, before your eyes you hate all the workers of iniquity. But wait a minute, hang on just a second. All of this really describes the human condition. This is who we are, and yet we're encouraged to come to him in prayer. This is our condition. This is the total corruption of man described here, and we're going to include tomorrow verse 6 in this description as well. This is who we are, the foolish, the workers of iniquity, the wicked, the evil. That's who we are as humans because of our fall in Adam. We have original sin that abides in us, and then we have our own willful sin that abides in us. And so when he describes this, he's not talking about somebody else out there. No, he's talking about himself. This is my condition. We understand suddenly that we have this huge contrast, these two themes that are just completely incongruent. They don't belong together whatsoever. We have the holy God who's hearing prayer, and we have the man who makes that prayer, but he doesn't belong in God's presence. How does he get in God's presence? Somehow he has to get in God's presence to make this prayer. Somehow he has to get in God's presence for God to hear his prayer, for God to recognize him. The foolish will not stand before God. He hates all the workers of iniquity. So how do you bridge that gap? There is a gap, isn't there? It's a huge chasm that keeps us from coming to God, and that is our sinfulness, our wickedness, our evil. Tomorrow we're going to find out about the words of falsehood, the bloody and deceitful man. Yeah, this is who we are before we make our prayer. We stand in this condition. Before we come to him at all, we stand in this condition. So we have this condition that alienates us from God, and yet we have this command there in verses 1 through 3 to pray. Well, at least we have those elements of prayer that basic to prayer. So how do we implement those 7 things that are basic to prayer while yet we're still sinful, atrocious deceivers? We're still evil. We are still foolish. How do we implement prayer when that's our condition? Well, tomorrow we're going to find out. So I hope you'll come back tomorrow, and we're going to look at verses 6 and 7, where we find the golden adversative. Once again, we saw it in Psalm 3, in verse 2. I think it was verse 2 of Psalm 3. We're going to see it again here in verse 7 of Psalm 5. So join me then here on Daily Dose Radio. Thanks for listening to Daily Dose Radio. For more fresh and delicious Bible studies, podcasts, books, and more, check out the Bible Bistro online and on YouTube. Join me again next time for Daily Dose Radio.